Hi, and welcome to this episode of Shop Miscellany. I've got a few little small projects I'm working on this week. None of them are big enough to count as a full project. I have this fixture to make here, which is pretty simple. That is 3/4 inch material, and it's to hold this part so that this can be welded onto it. And I believe it's going to be held like this. And then this part gets laser welded onto here, and the back piece gets welded onto here, and the whole assembly will be done. My part is to make a fixture for these two pieces, but they sent me the whole assembly so I could see what I was looking at. So this part here is what needs to have the fixture made for. That'll be out of this rod here. I also have this Herrig Grindall number 2 that I purchased off eBay. It was a good find and a good buy, except that it got damaged during shipping, and this handle got broken a bit, and the shaft got bent that it was attached to. This goes on here for when you're lying this flat. This, unlike the Grindall number 1, this works in 2 positions, horizontally and vertically. The Grindall number 1 is just vertically. I purchased from Herrig a replacement part so that I could have it in the vertical position if I wanted. Bought a new handle for the horizontal position because this one's damaged. And then the shaft got bent, and Herrig insisted that this shaft was hardened material, but it was really badly bent, and I just tapped it with a ball peen a couple times, and now you can see it's pretty straight. So I ordered a new shaft, and this one does appear to be hardened. So apparently at some point in time they made a change in their design. So we'll be working on this as well. This is a valve cover for a rubber boat, the expensive kind of boat, sort of like the kind you imagine Jacques Cousteau using or something like that. And there's these cheeseball plastic wrenches for it, and they'll let you tighten them into place and really crank on them. Unfortunately, they're plastic and they break real easy, like this one. And my brother-in-law asked me to make one out of metal, so we'll give that a shot. And then if we have time, if you remember, I had this Corloy cutter, and it was supposed to have wiper flats in it. Turns out the wiper flats are a separate insert, and I didn't have those. So I found these in Germany on eBay, and I thought I was going to put one in here and see how the wiper flats work. They'll mount like this. And so we'll see if that improves the surface finish, because this was a pretty mediocre surface finish, but it really hogged out material nicely. So we'll come back to that as well. So we're going to start with this guy first, and the first thing I did was verify the dimensions. So it's just a piece that's going to be held vertically like this, with a little section sticking out that will fit in here and mate with this part fairly accurately to hold it in place, so they can weld this part on first. I'm guessing this side up, and then they're going to weld this part on next and weld the bottom on, as I already said. And I verified that the thickness here plus the depth here is their dimension here. I'm thinking I might want to go a little less than 80 thousandths, because that's the exact combination depth, and that's not going to give me a lot of play if there's inconsistency in the materials. Turns out that a lot of the vendors are not being very consistent about their materials, their cut parts for them. They don't give me dimensions because I don't have the original vendor dimensions, so I don't know what the tolerances are. So we're gonna make it a little bit smaller than that, so that in case the depth of these parts varies a little bit, especially this part here, this thickness varies a little bit, that'll change how deep it penetrates, and I don't want this sticking up off the surface here. So we're just gonna head over to the lathe and turn this guy real quick. I often have a bit of time between projects, and you'll see that grit falls out of the air and lands on my ways. So before I move them for the first time, because I always oil them, and before I move them for the first time, I wipe them off so that I don't get grit trapped in the wipers. I mean, I'm still abrading it by wiping the grit off, but that can't be helped entirely. So I popped this guy in my 6 jaw. I just wanted to see how far out it is, and it looks like it's just about 1,000th, which is fine. I put it, considering this is cold rolled finish or hot, maybe it's even be hot rolled finish. I think it's cold finish. It's still got a bunch of pock marks from oxidation, so that's close enough. We're just going to clean it up with some sandpaper real quick, and then we're going to work on the end features. First step, we're just going to face off the end and get my 0 point. Next up, we're going to create the little relief section, and I'm going to make it much bigger than it needs to be, only because I want to be able to measure it. So I need enough sticking out to measure, and I'll just remove some until it's the right size. $150,000. We hit it within a couple thousandths right off the bat, so I'm just going to try and clean it up with the file and take off those extra couple thousandths. I'm actually a couple thousandths oversized right now that the customer put on their drawing, but this is still really sloppy. That's kind of disconcerting to me. So that also needs to fit inside here, but you have to relieve the center first. So I'm going to drill the hole for the center just to make sure there's somewhere for these pins to go so I can feel how it fits on this. Maybe with the combination of the two, it'll be fine. I gotta say right now, I'm not happy with the fit. I might recut it. This is supposed to go in 300 thousandths, but it can be deeper. Okay, so the inside diameter of this is the tighter spec. It is a lot smaller in diameter than this guy is. So when it's sitting on here, it won't sit flat right now. So some more material does need to come off. So I set my 0 on the face there, so now I can just pare this down to the 80 thousandths that they asked for. Although I am going to shoot for something somewhat smaller than 80 thousandths. So just trying to test fit of the parts. So this fits on here, this fits on top, and we are good. That is a nice fit. We are cooking. So there is a little slot between these guys here. So once it seats in this one, it holds everything nicely. I left it about a thousandth oversized of what they had measured. There's still a tiny bit of play, so I think that should handle variations in the parts. If not, I'll modify it for free. Last step, we're just parting this guy off. Here's the part finished. Just parted it off. There's some interesting scoring on the face that I didn't see. That's kind of ugly, but it won't affect operation. This guy sets flat. I made this diameter here 1.5 thousandths oversized, and it still has a ton of play. But once you put this guy on, it locks it into place nicely. So it's all good, and I think we're done. Ship this off to the customer tomorrow. Next up, we have repairing the Herrig Grindall number 2. So here's the old knob that's kind of broken, although there are some salvageable parts. I could make another rotary knob for this to match this without too much trouble, especially looking at how they made it. This goes on the back. I don't know if you can see that right here. There's 2 additional screw holes here. But this shaft got bent, and they originally said it was hardened steel, but I can say for relative certainty that it wasn't, because to bend it back, I just tapped lightly with a hammer as it rotated, processed around its center, and I got it mostly straight. And I'm just noticing right now, oh, it is the same size. It kind of looks like this was larger diameter. This one does appear to be hardened. So apparently it was a problem with the older ones and they replaced it. The question is, will I be able to get this shaft out? Because there's a fairly tight bushing here, I guess, to keep liquids out of the inside. So I'm not sure if I can get that off or not. We'll find out. So to get the to the gear, gotta pop this back piece off. So my apologies about the fan noise, but it's 110 out, and I have no air conditioning in the garage here, so it's a little bit warm. And strangely enough, this year the humidity is really high. I love the gear teeth on this thing. Look at the precision. That is just beautiful. So here's the gear that needs to come out. So actually I didn't really need to take this rear part off. It looks like I could just remove the 2 screws right here. Yep, could have just taken it straight out here without removing this pinion gear off here. So before, there was no way I was getting this through. There's still some burrs on here. So I'm going to take this over to the Scotch-Brite wheel and take these burrs off of here. And we'll replace this gear. This one's functional now. It doesn't rotate. I was able to straighten it surprisingly well. See, I don't know if you can see it. There's just a little bit of out around on it, but serviceable. But since I went to all the trouble buying one, I might as well put it on. Pop the burrs off of here, cleaned it up. Now it comes out pretty easily. And I think I'll save this one for the future because that's an $80 part. So we definitely don't want to lose that. The new one fits much better. Oh, but look at that. I think I'm gonna have to go over to the lathe and hard turn some of this material down off the back of the gear here. Because you can see the extra material on the back of the teeth there. Sorry. You can see the direct replacements, not so direct. So I'm going to take this over to the lathe, pop this guy in there, and hard turn off a little bit of that material. That's crazy that I should have to do that. So here's my setup. We got my parting tool. It actually turns out it's 50 thousandths after measuring it. And we're just going to take 50 thousandths off the back part of this. Hex collet block in my 6-jaw chuck with a 5C collet. And the rest should be history. I've set my zeros. See how hard this is. It's pretty hard. At least the surface is hard. Doesn't feel like it's particularly hard after you get in. Spoke too soon. It's got some hard bits. Turns out that there's a little stub part sticking out the end that presses against the inside surface to stop the gear from slopping back and forth. Is also long by about 30 thousandths. So I've already measured that off. And just gonna take that down, take some Scotch-Brite to get rid of the sharp edges, and hopefully now we'll be good to go. All right, so old gear, which we'll keep, new gear. I think I should probably add some lube in here. It's some interesting sort of like phenolic stuff. Very, very smooth rotating though. I'll add a little lube in there just in case. All right, goes in there nice and smoothly. So I'm gonna put the put the Allen cap head screws just in sort of lightly without cinching them down, just to see how it meshes with the gear. Because with the old one, you had to play with this to get it to line right. The new one seems to be a little bit better, but just to be sure. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely a lot better. I also remember it was a trick kind of get these guys to line up. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Except that doesn't line up. And that doesn't line up. As I recall, this only fits one way. That lines up. That one lines up. That lines up. Well, there we go. Here's the new handle. And we're good to go. All right, so here you go. 2/4 20 screws. You don't leave both handles on simultaneously, but I'm going to store it with both handles on it so they don't get misplaced. And it looks like these 7/8 inch screws should be just about the right length to capture enough threads. And we are good to go. That handle, which is incredibly smooth. This one, a little bit less so. Okay, so all we're missing now is the angle block that goes here. It's a custom angle block. If you buy it from Herrig finished, even though it's still not entirely finished, so mostly finished, it's 900 bucks, and then the rough finished one is 300 and something bucks. So I'll try and figure out something, maybe make my own. They give it to you without grinding these two parts in it. There's two protrusions that slide in the slot to keep it lined up this way. And anyways, you still have to do the finish grinding yourself on it. So I figured might as well make my own. So we'll do that at some point in the future. In the meantime, we're doing pretty well. This handle's for vertically, and this handle over here is for lying flat, which I can't do with the other handle on it. So you only use one handle at a time and then take the other one off. You can also replace this with a pulley and use a motor drive on it, which is another project in the future. All right, moving on.